6:05, June 3rd, 2019. Charlotte Select Board, bring the meeting to order. Is VCAM all set? Hi. Oh.
I'll turn it down.
Yeah, because that echoes back in. That's some delay. Let's see, any adjustments to the agenda? Okay, then right on time. 6:05, discuss banking relationships.
The motivator for that one, I had asked Mary about the potential of us finding banking services that would give us some more interest or give us some interest on our significant reserve funds. The general consensus from a couple of banks I've talked to is that we should be getting more than we get. Mary said we should probably bring it up at a select board level. So banking is really out of my wheelhouse. I don't know. I asked somebody, I said, so what do you do with a bank? Do you ask them for proposals? And they said, well, if you're sure what you want to get, you need to have wire serviceability. You need to have this checking and this account that you can write a specific RFP and give to banks to give you proposals for. And they said that Williston had just done that. But I wouldn't have any idea how to do that. And the second recommendation was just start asking people to talk to us. Call some banks, find out who their person is and say, at which they're going to need to know what our accounts and everything are. And that I can't answer. But then they can come up with a letter or some idea of what they can propose to us. So.
Mary?
So our bank has been Citizens Bank for 24 years or so. And they were not giving us the best interest that they could have. And so for the past month and a half or so, I have talked to TD Bank and People's United. Those are the main players. And I have a good relationship with both of the guys that are the government, the municipal part of the banking. Dave Olson for People's United and John Weston for TD Bank. So they both came in and told me what they would be able to offer for interest on our general fund, which is our biggest fund, our checking account, on average, right now we have about 3.8 million until the state takes their chunk for education taxes. But anyways, the other bank services that we get from Citizens are the same that TD Bank has to offer and the same that People's United has to offer. And all of those banks offer those services for no extra fee. So we're really looking at, hey, I want some more interest. This is ridiculous. And so People's United came in at, I think, 1.5% interest. And it gets adjusted, depending on what the federal rate is doing, maybe 6 to 8 times a year. And then TD Bank was a little bit higher than People's United, and Citizens came through with 1.75% when I was kind of like, hey, you really need to do better because we are shopping. And so I feel like those are the main banks for players out there for municipal government needs. And I would suggest that we constantly look at what's out there, but I would suggest that we stay with Citizens Bank at the highest interest rate.
People's was 1.5. What was TD Bank?
TD Bank he was kind of like, well, I think I can offer you like 1.7 in that range.
Wishy-washy.
And Citizens was 175, I think.
So actually, our checking account has already been adjusted,
So it's earning now.
starting now.
Well, that's a lot better.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think just the fact that you were shopping probably accomplished most of the goal.
The shopping accomplished, but I would also suggest that in the future, and I would work on it myself, to come up with a simple investment policy that would be, that the select board and the treasurer would work on together. Like there's funds within the general fund that are sizable, and if a CD rate comes available that is, that we could earn more, we need to know that we can tie up those funds for 6 or 9 months, like the conservation fund at $500,000. When are your projects coming up? How much money could we take and set aside and earn like some more for you? Or the affordable housing fund, which is like 138,000 or so, and is pretty much just sitting there unused. So I feel like that is something that hasn't happened, and it would be nice.
It's a great idea.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
.2.
Sounds good. Okay, well, thanks for doing the legwork. I think we'll move on to the 610 Library Edition, selection of a contractor. Fritz, do you want to?
Sure. I wrote kind of like a summary that I think I emailed you guys, but didn't go out till Friday after the library board meeting, so probably a number of people haven't seen it, so I'll start out just by reading it. So I guess we don't have to read it into the record, just for those that haven't seen it. In March 2019, the town of Charlotte approved a bond issue to fund approximately or up to $700,000 of the total cost of an addition to the library. This was in response to a demonstrated need and a conceptual design put forth by the library board. The conceptual design and the accompanying feasibility study was funded by the Friends of the Charlotte Library. A working group of 2 select board members, 2 library board members, an energy commission member, and the library director was created to draft a design-build RFP to send out for proposals. This RFP was approved by the select board and advertised as directed by the town purchasing policy on April 15th. 3 proposals were received and opened on May 20th as directed by the RFP. An MOA working group consisting of 2 select board members, 2 library board members, the town clerk treasurer, and the library director was formed to create the agreement as to how payments would be made by both the town and the Friends of the Library, each sharing an equal burden. This group also chose the proposal review working group from a number of people with experience in the construction industry to compare the proposals. The proposal review looked at the 2 lowest proposals, Rearc and Breadloaf. This information was presented to the library board and the library building group on May 31st, and now to the select board on June 3rd. The proposal approved by the library board and the library building group is from Rearc. Rearc was originally the least expensive proposal. When analyzed by the proposal review group, the Rearc proposal ended up slightly higher than the Breadloaf proposal, about $7,000 or less than 1%. The lowest proposal was not chosen because the design by Rearc was much better at accomplishing the library goals and was considered a better value. The total price, including owner costs, is $1,192,681, or $200,000 less than the conceptual budget. The final bond amount to be submitted to the bond bank along with the design build contract, I think, is on our agenda for the 10th, correct?
Yeah, a commitment to the bond bank.
Yeah, yes. So, from this point, I can give a brief discussion. The three proposals, the most expensive one from Naylor and Bream was based on the original concept. Breadloaf had a revised concept plan, and Briark had another revised concept plan. And since you don't think anybody's seen them, I got some visual aids here. I'll probably just hold this one up, and if you feel like looking at the others during or after the meeting, or pass around, whatever. This is the floor plan from the REAR group. It basically, instead of having an entrance on this end, put an entrance to the vestibule. One of the big concerns for the conceptual design was the children's area was not very light, kind of in a dungeon. So this design put that area right out on the south side with a matching round feature that's the same on the existing library for the children's area. It leaves the program room, which is accessible after hours without having to open the rest of the library. We'll stick that up there. These are just some more detailed sections, and I don't know if anybody wants to pass this around or holding up. If there's any questions, I'll take a whack at answering them. I think the significant change to the conceptual plan is putting the children's area where there's the most light. So, I would guess the rest would be questions. The group that evaluated the prices came up with a spreadsheet, and then another spreadsheet, and then a final spreadsheet. Part of the packet, here it is, which is what we call the total cost to the owner. Which I don't have. Oh, here we go. It lists, comparing the two lowest bidders, what their cost was, what the owner costs are going to be, such as site work and landscaping, which was not included in the bid, some construction testing, removing the oil tank. We're crossing our fingers that it never leaked. A budget for permits from the Division of Fire and Safety. Additional utility fees for the increase in electric use. $5,000 for legal. Hopefully we never have to consult an attorney in this process. Builder's risk for the town. Furnishings, fixtures, equipment, that's shelving that's not included. One of the decisions made by the library and the architects that we all talked to was to try to limit the amount of built-in features, cabinets, countertops, to keep the space flexible, because it's a lot easier to buy a cabinet and put it in a window than it is to realize you don't want it there and have to tear it out and patch the drywall and so on and so forth. There's a budget for audio visual, an owner contingency at $21,000 or 2% for what we forgot or what we might want to change our mind on. Also in the packet is the two bid forms from the RFP, instructions to bidders, and a copy of the schedule as proposed by REARC, which was, both have the starting time in as soon as possible, and REARC was expecting to be done a few months before the bread loaf proposal. So that's kind of what was in the packet. If anybody's got any questions about the process, about the numbers, about the design.
Looks like the finish date for bread loaf is mid-April of 2020, and for REARC in January? February?
February. Both acknowledging
yeah.
that time is money and they want to get out of there as soon as possible. I did, in the owner cost, we didn't include the solar panels, which were originally a big portion of the design. Even with the previous roof design, it wasn't enough to supply the buildings. And it was kind of the consensus over the few meetings we had that the solar should be handled as almost a separate item. Do we want it to be a demonstration project where the library would have a fixed panel, a tracker panel, a roof panel, a carport mounted panel, all with showing the different varieties? Or do you want to try to get enough panels to find a location where you would do the entire town? Since that's part of our energy plan, is to be less fossil fuel focused. That would encompass finding a site somewhere off-site, or maybe the combination of roofs for town hall's got some good south-facing. So anyway, that was left out of the bid along with the site work. So the plan for site work includes an additional 8 or 9 parking spots. The plan also includes removing the driveway that's currently on the east side of the library. That allows for, gets us out of having to have a statewide stormwater runoff permit. There's always been some safety concerns about the library and the fact that people are going around there and the kids come out the door. No better way to slow down traffic than to make it a dead end. They won't be going fast by the kids anymore because they will have to stop over here. One of these had a site plan on it, I think. But this one shows a little better their concept for parking, but I think in talking to Junior that there's probably a more economical way to achieve this. The problem comes further down there, changing the driveway and what have you. I think. Anyway, part of our site work budget was consultation with Junior and the DNF paving, who's gave us some prices.
Mo?
I have a question about that parking situation. Seeing I was involved with building the town hall and all the permits we had to go through from the state. At the time, they would not allow us to park there because it was a wetland. So have you addressed that? And is there a permit from the state to
That's part of they showed parking here, which is, you're right, and it's in the wetland, and I think by leaving it the way it is and adding some parking to the left of the dumpsters. One of the advantages of getting rid of this is that you have certain square foot, there's two stormwater types of water, there's the dirty street water and the clean roof water. So we're actually swapping what the dirty water is here for parking over here, and then some of the parking goes through, well, it depends, there's three versions of the wetland. But at this point, any additions of parking just goes into the buffer.
Have you gotten a permit from the state, the wetlands permit to do this? To what you're talking about? Because you're gonna go into that wetland area, right?
Well, part of it is to leave the existing pavement just the way it is. And to add the parking spots,
To the north of the existing driveway.
well, where the trash cans are out there.
Yeah, that's north.
Just go east from there.
Okay, so you're not talking about putting parking to the south side of the driveway?
No.
Okay.
But this, the number of spots you get along here that are already there, minus the couple you need, plus the ones you pick up by just continuing that part over there. I think we're either even or short one, and one of the concepts too is to just put the, when we tear out all the street, leave part of it right here for the handicap parking.
Right.
So the handicap stall would go away, and you almost pick up two because they're fat. That could be the old driveway, and then the,
Well, the only reason I'm bringing it up is because when we built this building, it was a major problem with the state of Vermont, because this whole area was considered a wetland. And
still is. Although that's an interesting question that I haven't got an answer to, is that they gave us permission to drain the town green. So can you still consider it a wetland? Because you permitted us to drain it, so it can't be a wetland anymore. I haven't got an answer to that one yet.
Good luck.
We're talking about a site plan and parking. Has this been through planning and zoning?
We talked to them about it. We have one site plan that we held off on until we picked the final design, because what happens on this end of the building was subject to it, so.
So as it stands today, there is no permit from planning on this, there's no site plan, it's been approved.
No, there's the,
So how can,
site, it's the first thing you do.
Sketch.
plan. Sketch plan came out with a letter and said what you need to address to keep them happy. One of them was site lighting, another one was parking, and the third one was,
property line setback, 50-foot buffer from wetlands, there were a number of things that needed to be addressed.
well, the buffer is what the buffer is, and it's built 50 feet. So it doesn't.
Well, but if you're moving a parking lot and moving parking spaces closer to the wetland, the buffer, you have to respect that buffer.
That's not,
Well, you know what, it's not a discussion for here. I think it's a discussion for the planning, or for planning, isn't it? I mean, does the town or enjoy some sort of special privilege to be able to build without?
There's on the schedule, there's looks like a 3-month plus window for permitting. So no mobilization is planned until September.
So let me understand this. The planning commission will allow you to go ahead with a project before you've gotten...
No, that's the permitting process.
Okay, the
between
permitting,
now
yeah, sure.
and September.
did you see the,
So...
can you put the schedule up there?
I don't think I have it on the website.
As of Friday, I didn't think they were on an agenda. Are they on an agenda? Is the library on an upcoming agenda for planning?
I've been talking to Daryl, on when we expect to get the plan. Now that we've confirmed that we like this design and getting rid of the driveway, we'll modify the plan and show that, and then we'll give it to Daryl and get on the agenda.
So when we looked at REARC's proposal that you just talked about, it was 1.1 something, that doesn't include what might happen with a site plan and what could happen Does it? I mean, is there a
No,
number in there?
there's,
for-
this site work was not part of the RFP.
Yeah.
The
So the number that
their
you're,
estimates of what they thought would be there was,
so as I've read planning correspondence, there's still a lot of question about how many parking spaces are going to be needed. That's not a given. That there were some things that the planning commission or planning asked for the library to address. And I'm not sure that all those, I don't think anyone's made a final decision. They're talking about borrowing parking from across the street at the Children's Center, borrowing parking here. There's some question as to the classification of the building, and whether it's a requirement of one parking space per 300 square feet or one parking space per 200 square feet. So it seems to me that there's still quite a lot of work to be involved in getting an approval to do this project. That it's not a given that you're going to go in there because you're the library or you're representing the library, and the zoning people are going to just say, yeah, go ahead and do what you want to do. Stormwater from a library roof or a parking lot is the same as anyone else's. There were some concerns, I think, about septic too. I read that you're relying on a 1997 site plan that was approved for the library and approval for the wastewater permit. But that has an assumption that we have the same number of people working at the library today that worked there in 1997, that the number of hours that are being worked at the library are the same. I mean, so there is, I think that they said that this addition wasn't going to mean any more employees, but I'm not sure that that's going to be the case in the next several years, and certainly not a consideration for the last 20 some odd years since the library has been built. There were calculations made on the need for septic based on 97 figures. Now you're increasing the property by a fair percentage, and they've increased the number of employees since 97. So it just seems that I think if a private individual was doing this, that the town would require at least some sort of engineer making a statement and verifying the septic, and that there's adequate septic there.
These are all very good concerns for the planning process. Right now, we're looking at the bids for the contract, the contract selection.
When we're talking about a cost today for the total cost of the project, and we don't have those numbers to plug in, it's a little deceiving that the number is going to be 1.1 something million when we don't have everything included because we haven't gotten all of our approvals.
Great, got your point. Thank you. Deirdre?
Could you explain a little bit more the solar aspect? You said it was removed from the bid, right? Does that mean
Well-
it was just removed from the RFP, but it will continue as a separate
it
project?
was asked for in the RFP as a separate number. The problem with the solar panels on this structure to run the whole structure is that a lot of them are facing west. It's not an optimal, by any means, location of solar panels. So it was like, based at the efficiency you get with the panels facing not the right direction, it was almost $100,000 for solar for the building, where if you can find a location that is an optimal location, that price would be significantly less, and I think, I don't know, it was like a third of that. So we decided not to try to force solar in an inefficient manner just to have it, but to look at that like the site work as a whole question as to what do you want to accomplish? Do you want to just have the solar for the library and forget the town hall, or do we want to try, if you find a spot or a way to do the net metering, do we want to try to accommodate the whole town? So there was a number of questions that led to the decision, well, at this point, we won't plan on putting an inefficient group of panels on the building.
Wasn't there something in the proposal that talked about the hookups for the panels?
Yes, they're in the proposal for whatever, basically conduits and ways to get to the mechanical roof. So should we decide to cover all the parking spots with a carport, should we decide to put some on this roof and some on the dormers of the library, that at least the library has got the ability to allow the wiring to go in the building without having to dig up the concrete, bust holes in the walls. So that's all, basically it's extra conduits that go to the outside of the building.
Yes, Tom?
I was on the bid review subcommittee, and at our last meeting, we reached agreement on the budget, and it had solar in the budget. And the first I knew that it had been taken out was coming to this meeting tonight. So that's a little bit disconcerting. A number of the issues that you raised about solar have answers that you could have been given if the Energy Committee had been asked. However, if the decision tonight is just about approving the contractor and not approving the contract itself or the amount, I would hope there's an opportunity for someone from the Energy Committee in the next week to meet with the Library Building Committee to look at this issue of solar more thoughtfully and to come up with a decision that the Energy Committee can at least be comfortable with.
Well, when we discussed this, and you were there, I was under the impression that the reason it wasn't on the owner cost is because we didn't know exactly what it should be. That it wasn't going to be an efficient installation, and we were going to accommodate for whatever we decided for A, just the building, B, the whole town, or whether it's to be a demonstration project, or whether the goal is to cover all of the electricity for the library.
Last meeting, solar was included, and the total project cost was different from what you're being shown now. So I left with the understanding that it was in the total project cost, so that's all.
Do you remember what the solar piece was?
Beg your pardon?
Do you remember the?
It's on there.
Yeah, it's the same number as down to the bottom there.
Got it.
And I don't think this is the forum to talk about it, but there are reasons to put it on the list. It could be smaller than what it is. There are arguments for a number of small demonstration panels. There are arguments against those. There's plenty of demonstrations you can see all around town. And the issue about meeting more of the town's needs from solar is a much larger question than just, well, we put solar on the library roof. We have an opportunity here to say, let's make a statement with a new building and put some solar on the roof. It doesn't have to be 30 kilowatts, but, let's put 10 or 15. And by the way, it's about a 6% return on your investment. You'd have to tie it up much longer than you would like, Mary, but anyway, that's enough.
Thanks, John. Margaret?
Yeah, I'd just like to respond because I certainly don't want anybody to feel like anything was misrepresented. I think solar is an important part of this project, and I think it would be worthwhile to have a conversation. And I think our previous conversations have demonstrated our interest and our commitment to including that as part of the project. I think the conversation, my understanding when we left was that the solar was in flux. The numbers that were offered, no one really knew what they meant. So perhaps, given the time crunch, we felt that it should be moved down to the bottom until we had those more accurate numbers of one, what could be included in the project and what that would cost. So I think for purposes of moving forward, it was decided to sort of block it out that way. And you would know better than I exactly what other options for a solar system would include. And I think for them to price that out and then have it be a part of a building that isn't even going to be built anymore, there's no longer that south-facing roof where the solar panels were going to go. There's a lot of questions as to that, and I think it was understood if the conduit, as Frank pointed out, is going to be included. To me, that's the biggest commitment, that we want solar to be part of the project. We just need to figure out how it's going to be part of the
So
project.
can we do that in the next week before the total project cost is, the select board's being asked to vote on?
Well, I think there have also been conversations with the Energy Committee about how we might fund the solar as outside of a cost to the town. So I think, yes, there does need to be a conversation about that.
Peter?
How many KW is this, are they proposing? You've got a $97,000 to $102,000. What size is it?
30 kilowatts.
30 kilowatts?
It was
Um,
huge. They had to fit it on its roof. They put some on, we don't have a roof plan. But basically, it was a west-facing, the entire west-facing roof needed panels. And these dormers that face south had panels, which is why to produce the amount that the library needs from the roof was very efficient.
As far as having conduit and stuff, it's not important that this electricity be produced on this lot, on this property, and it's funneled to the library building. You can put solar panels with Green Mountain Power any place and assign the account, the building, to, and have net meter reading. And so you could have solar panels over on Greenbush Road that don't need to be connected here. You don't have to do conduit in the building. All you have to do is assign an account number to that solar array, and Green Mountain Power will bill it and credit the library. So to have the building adapted to receive wiring and that sort of stuff, if you don't have the roof and you don't have the proper facing roof, I don't think you have to go through the expense of doing that. You can just assign a meter. And I would encourage the library, solar is great for tax benefits. I'm not sure that it's real good for producing electricity in Vermont. And I say that I own 150,000 kilowatt hour solar array, and I probably have another 50 or so on rooftops on certain buildings that I have. And the payback is good through taxes, not so good through the amount of power that you're going. So if the library had somebody on the Friends of Library that needed some tax breaks, they could certainly do something for the library and discount the electricity to the library and get the tax benefits.
I was thinking the same thing, that if you're a tax-free entity, why do you need it? You don't need the tax deduction, so you need to find some way to funnel that into a donation or a different structure. So that was part of the whole,
I think there's plenty of time to work on the solar because it doesn't have to be incorporated with the building or the design of the building or the construction of the building. It's something that can be dealt with when the project's done and you know how much money you have left for other parts of, things that might not be
the
necessary.
expense of having to put a few spare conduits from here to here is not a whole lot. Probably use them for something else eventually anyway.
John to this point, and then Mary.
A lot of what you said I would agree with about net metering and about certain accelerated depreciation and tax credits that are available for investors. The Energy Committee is actually considering hiring a consultant with 30 years' experience in the industry who was able to structure a deal for a nature center in East Montpelier. It's not that simple for a small system because of the administrative costs involved in trying to generate the tax credits and the accelerated depreciation. And there are other ways of getting around it that this person was able to do. So, we're going to be considering hiring them to take a look at that for the library. However, there's a lot to be said for the statement that's made by having solar panels on the roof of a town building rather than that solar being produced from a field somewhere that no one ever sees or no one necessarily associates with the town. And if you put panels on a west-facing roof it's 80% as efficient as if you put it on the south-facing roof. And even allowing for that, you still get about a 6% return on your investment. So, again, I don't know that there's much more value to discussing that in this forum. I just hope that the Energy Committee in the next week has an opportunity to talk about it with the Library Building Committee.
Mary?
Just listening to everyone and looking at the list up there, and it seems like there's quite a few things that are out there, hanging out there, and just the site plan and the permits is one, but there seems to be a lot of unknown, not exactly pinned down costs right now. So I'm wondering how on June 10th, we're gonna be able to have a concrete number and be able to say to the bond bank, this is how much is coming from this is how much we want to borrow from the bond bank, because this is how much the library has in funding, and this is our true price. And I haven't heard anything, but I don't even know that. I mean, are we going to have a letter from the bond bank by June 10th that says yay or nay? I mean, it would be silly to have a meeting on June 10th and say whatever when you haven't gotten that letter from the bond bank yet.
The commitment,
Yeah.
that's one thing we're waiting on. So we have it penciled in so that we could discuss it, and if it's not there by June 10th, it would be at the June 24th meeting.
It just seems like the numbers aren't really firm.
I can talk to that to somewhat. The number that's at the top of the page is going to give us the building that's over there as proposed. The contractor has agreed to, and they have things that they haven't. They have their historical information as to what they spend on. Like there's a flooring number and what they spend on windows and drywall. But they still go out and get hard numbers. They have agreed to let the town participate in that bid process, so if we have a local contractor or somebody who's gonna give them a maybe half price on something as a donation, or somebody in town that really wants to do it, they're allowed to put the bid in when that process happens. And the understanding is that it will never be more than this price, but if we find economies, that we'll be able to participate in that.
So you're saying that one, like REARCH, 1,063,650 or whatever, that's the true number. That's the true number that we would be looking at to say, okay, the town is going to put in this much and the library's going to put in that much. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it'd be the bottom of the page. That would be their contribution, but there's the site work and landscaping, the permits,
Who's
furnishings.
paying for that?
For
Everything. You have the top.
the number at the bottom would be the one that you give the bond.
Number at the bottom, so.
Well, for
1.1.
1.192681.
That's what you're saying would be split between the library and the town?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? And within that stuff, there's unknowns and
And
things that haven't
contingencies
been.
there is a contingency built into both of the bids also, based on these unknowns. You know, this is the design-build process. It's not a new way of going about
I thought we
construction.
weren't paying for furnishings. I thought the bond, what we voted on was for construction and design. So how does that work?
I think that's the piece in the MOA that we're looking at tonight references the renovation.
Well, part of that has to do with built-in cabinets. I mean,
Yeah, but built-in cabinets are part of the building. That's a-
yes,
that's a
so I mean,
fixture.
the one price was $77,000 for all the built-ins. If people weren't sure that we wanted, it was what the designers thought might be. So the option to, instead of paying all that money and not have the flexibility in the design was to say, well, you know, there was a bunch of little seatings under the windows, here, here, these. And we said, well, let's not build those in. If we want it to sit there, we'll buy a bench and put it there, and then if it doesn't work, we can take the bench out.
I understand that, but that wasn't part of what we voted on.
Well, yes and no. I mean, would the town rather pay $77,000 for built-in or pay
No,
$25,000 for
I'm not
furnished?
making any kind of judgment on the design or what everybody wants. I'm just saying, clearly, furnishings were not included. It's how we voted, it's what
The vote stated
on the ballot.
construction. The vote actually states
You know,
construction.
when we vote on for example, when we vote on purchasing an ambulance or a truck or whatever, we say, we're going to bond for this much money for the purchase and the equipping of the vehicle. We worded the library edition that way. We said, we're going to vote up to $700,000 for the construction and design of the library edition. I'm just,
Thank you. Christina?
What happens if you guys are talking about a contractor to pick a contractor? So you pick a contractor and say you guys pick REAR. And funds still haven't been discussed. From a previous meeting, I know it was talked about that the library in pledges and whatnot had 440. And that still puts it shy, even if throughout your discussions in the MOA you decide to bond for the full 700, you still don't have the full amount to meet that. Now, they're going to do a public fundraising, but there's still not a guarantee that they're going to get the full amount that's remaining after we bond. So if the fundraising doesn't work out and they don't get the full amount, who picks up the tab? Because the town is the one that's entering the contract. So you're going to accept a contractor's bid without actually having the full amount of this bid available or pledged from both parties.
That's also addressed in the MOA, which will be coming up shortly. Margaret?
It was my understanding that we were discussing the financing next week on June 10th.
For the MOA?
And the whole project.
Your understanding,
I mean, I feel that we would need to be prepared to come talk in more detail about the library's part of that conversation, so.
yeah, if you're more comfortable, we could move that to the June 10th.
That would be great, thank you.
That gives us a little more time for this discussion.
So how much is added to this cost for any kind of renovations to the existing building?
There's replacing the HVAC system for the entire building. There's replacing the carpet for the entire building, well, for the old part. There's air sealing the windows and plugs the walls. This is to try to accommodate a desired energy usage per square foot. It's, what is it, 30?
There was a target at the RFP of energy use for the entire building, addition and existing structure, and that target was 30 kBTUs per square foot. And in the course of the working with the contractor, there's the energy modeling done, and as a result of that process, the Library Building Committee will be able to make decisions about various energy-related features of the building in order to stay within the budget, the fixed budget, and try and get the entire building as energy efficient as possible.
Right, I agree with that. I'm just saying that what part of that isn't part of the construction of the new building? I mean, if we're talking about construction of the addition, what is the number that's being used to retrofit the old building to bring it up to the standards that you're, you know, those energy standards whether there's any kind of insulation in the roofing, insulation in the walls, lighting. I know I read somewhere in here that there's some lighting being replaced to LEDs. I mean, to me, that part isn't part of the construction of the addition. I know it'd be nice to have it all done at once. And I know that's the consensus. But when you're talking the money part, I'm trying to separate up between what's being done. I mean, I understand the heating system has to be done because you're talking a whole new building, pretty much. And what's in there is probably inefficient to today's standards. But I mean, I'm trying to separate those numbers.
$4,600 for relamping the existing building, with going from the assorted lights to all LED. Air sealing was $16,400. So those are the two energy-related things that are happening to the old building, and the third one of significance is the carpet. Changing it all out so it matches.
And I'm trying to do this apples to apples, as Matt always tries to do, and it's hard to do the apples and apples when you got two different concept designs. When you have ReArc and you have Bread Loaf, they have two totally different designs. Now, granted, the numbers are relatively close, but we're trying to compare two totally different designs and come up with.
The committee that reviewed the prices met with each person for about 2 to 2.5 hours and went through a plethora of questions. I may have some of those anyway. We came up, we met, we went over the plans, everybody went home, digested the bids, the plans, came up with a bunch of questions. We met, went over the questions, some we could answer, some we couldn't. Then we met with the two contractors, or the two, we'll call them contractors, and asked them questions that, are you including this, and what do we expect for this? So a lot of that was done by the committee that met with both of them. Without being there, I don't know how you could document it all. I mean, we could have recorded it, I suppose, but I think there was a significant amount of effort put in by that group to make sure that. That's why ReArc's bid started out at $881 and ended up at 1 point something, because we said, well, we need this is what they're putting in, and you're not putting in that. So it all was compared.
Right, and that's another thing I'm a little bit confused over when we're talked about other things with RFPs. Things that weren't within the bid were talked about, and then one said add it, the other said no, and then, so if we approve ReArch with this whole thing, it's not really what they started out with their bid.
Part of the request for bid was the design itself.
Right.
So-
It was the design, but I mean, there's a lot of things that were added to ReArch's bid, as you stated, from 889,000 to 1.2 million.
Yes.
There were a lot of things that were added that weren't given in their original price,
In their original design.
That
is correct.
So I mean, not that, I'd like to, make sure that we're looking at, the same thing, and that what it was bid, what the bid was and what we're looking at. And it seems to me that, I mean, the committee did a heck of a stroke of business on all this. They did a really, you know, between you and the rest of the committee, did a real good job of laying it out for us. But I'm still just a little bit wary of, it's not what was in the original bid. So and unfortunately, I haven't had the time to digest all this information yet. So I think I need a little more time.
I gave you quite a pile of it there.
Yes.
Well, we are also, speaking of time, out of time for this subject. How would the board like to proceed?
I would like to make a motion to approve this for more than one reason.
Sorry to it's difficult to hear, so, but it's Louise, and Matt, when you have a minute, could you recognize me? Thanks.
Yes. Luis?
Yes, I've been listening, and I'm hearing what Frank is saying, but, and I really apologize again that I can't be there. I was incredibly impressed with Fritz and the entire bid review team. I thought we assembled a great group of folks who brought expertise to the table, spent some serious time analyzing everything. And Frank, I heard what you said, but I think we've had the best of the best take a look at this. And I just, from my perspective, I just want to make sure they get thanked. I'm done.
Okay. Thanks, Luis. Carrie? Are you there? Would you like to add anything?
No, no, thank you.
Okay. Fritz?
There still remains the contract to write up and the review by the select board. So without having a person, we can't start that. And I think that might hold up our schedule because we can't commit to them until we have a contract to approve. Maybe by next Monday, maybe not. It depends. Once we pick someone, then I can sit down with that person. We can come up with a draft contract that then I can bring to the select board so we can get started. But they can't start on their schedule until we can commit, and we don't want to commit until we have a signed contract. So there's a time factor in there that I would like to, I don't think I think the difference in the designs is enough from what the input that the library has gotten with how much more this provides than the other two options. I think far outweighs any thoughts of, if we put it off another week, are we going to pick the other person? Well, we don't like their design. It's not as efficient. So the point in putting it off is, I mean, the hard part is swallowing the money. Either they're both about the same. So to put it off, I don't know what the goal would be. So are you
suggesting that we approve a contractor tonight and then on June 10th or at a future meeting approve a contract with a final amount?
Yes, we can.
With plenty of more discussion,
Yes.
time for discussion.
But we got to start with somebody. I mean, I would hate to try to run two parallel contract things just for the hell of it, because it's going to be, there's actually an attorney in town that's volunteered to review and help with this too. I saw John out there. What was your neighbor's name? Escapes me. Okay.
Speak for him.
All right.
But,
okay, enough said.
But yeah, he's willing.
He's willing to help us out. And I would propose voting on it tonight if
To select a contractor.
just for the purposes of moving forward, because we still have the MOA to iron out. We still have a contract. I mean, we may come down to nuts and bolts and they say, I'm not signing that contract, and it could still go south. So
And the town could not sign
Absolutely.
a contract presented to us. Do you want to make a motion?
sure, I'll make a motion to accept REARC as the contractor for the library edition, subject to approval of the MOA and the contract at a later meeting.
I'll second that.
Is there any more discussion? Mary, you had?
Would the select board ever consider now that there's it seems that the design is what the library likes, and would there ever be a consideration, now that you have a lot more pieces that you know, of taking the design and rebidding? And putting out an RFP that includes a not to exceed cost?
That's part of the contract. When I said the REARC is going to include the town in the bid process, that would be basically the same thing. It may not be to bid for the whole project, because designs are proprietary and you can't take somebody's design and farm it out without having to pay them for their design. So I think there will be.
But this contractor, I think the way it was explained, has committed to including the town in the bidding process from a construction management point of view.
It's like a hybrid open book.
Yeah. Carrie, Louise, do you want to add anything before a vote?
Louise, I would be repeating myself. I think the community has come together to take a look at all of the bids, and I want to thank everybody, and I support this motion because I think for all the reasons Fritz has laid out and that I've read, and thank you, Fritz, for that great memo, I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Carrie?
When did the bond bank need its paperwork?
We still don't know when the bond bank's paperwork is coming to the town. That's a question mark from the bond bank, not from the town.
Okay, well, I support the motion too.
Okay, all those in favor of selecting REARC as the contractor for the library edition as moved, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Your vote only counts once.
Sorry, I have bad technology here. I'm doing my best. Sorry. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, so 5-0, selecting REARC as the contractor. The 650 was postponing the 640 agenda item to the June 10th meeting. And now for the 650 agenda item, the Friends of the Charlotte Public Library request to use the town green for annual book sale on July 21st. Glad you're here.
Yeah, we can sell a lot of books.
Okay. Yep. Bye. We're down one. Is Bill here? No? So there's an application. Do you want to describe the event? That's not new.
Although there's a new, so we have some food trucks and the big tent and the book sale, and this year the Energy Committee is having a, what's it called?
Fossil-free jamboree.
A fossil-free jamboree that will accompany the book sale. That will be very cool. And it's pretty much business as usual. This is our third year of actually doing it this way, and it seems like it hasn't caused any undue issues.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. Any questions from the board?
Well, Louise, and I do. Nanny, I'm not going to vote in support of this unless you promise to come to my house and personally extract 300 books.
All right.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to
Sounds like
in your pocket.
That's not a Tahoe.
They have to pass the sniff test.
Is there a motion?
I'll move it, thank you.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the town green for the annual book sale on July 21st, 2019, indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
4-0. Thanks, have a good sale. 7 o'clock, public comment? Yeah, could you please state your name and then,
Sure. I'm Noah Cole, live over on Stockbridge Road. I came today just to talk a little bit about a problem that's happening in our neighborhood, and at least one other part of Charlotte that I'm aware of, which is our abandoned and vacant homes. We moved in about 3 years ago, and there had been some sort of a legal battle with our next door neighbors that we were never involved in. But basically, a house had been left abandoned and vacant for at least 10 or 15 years. And we've been there for 3 years now, and there's no maintenance of the property, no maintenance of the home, etc. And what's happened is that it started to pose both a health risk and an environmental problem. So poison parsnip has spread pretty aggressively from this unmaintained field into 5 adjacent properties, or at least it's trying to in a couple of them because they're persistently mowing. So the poison parsnip has spread, and you can actually watch the spread. I had the public health officer from Charlotte come over and take a look at it, and it's pretty obvious when and where. I have pictures just to show how bad the problem is. So that's been a health risk for us, but also there's probably a rodent problem that's coming from there. You know, we've had pest control, we have 2 barn cats, and I'm not a cat person, but I am now because they're great. So we've had issues with that as well. I would imagine that's probably affecting home prices in the area as well. There's another property down on Island Farm Road, which is, there's been a similar course of action where it's been abandoned for some time, initially by the same family, but both properties have been sold a while back, is my understanding. I think there are additional safety problems as well. I mean, it's a vacant place. People could be in there, animals could be in there. The electrical boxes outside are underwater because they're not maintained by anybody in the middle of the winter and when it turns to spring. And so I did a little bit of digging and talking with Aaron Brown, the health officer. He looked up some of the ordinances in surrounding towns, and many or most of them have ordinances against abandoned and vacant lots when they're problematic. And so I looked through the one from St. Albans, and I have some copies of it here, that for homes or buildings that are vacant, that are abandoned, that pose a public nuisance because of their appearance, grass higher than 10 inches, but also things that pose a danger because they're abandoned, animals can live in them, pest control problems, that at least there, all of those are issues which there can be public recourse for from the town, which involve penalties and then taking steps to mitigate the problems. We've reached out repeatedly to the homeowners, both with email or mail and over phone with no response. I know that there are people interested in looking at the property. We were interested in it when we moved in. That's not my reason, because we already own a home here. But nobody can get a hold of anybody to do anything about it. So I was interested to see if people had other solutions or were interested in sort of a town ordinance to have some sort of penalties for properties like this.
Did you look into the,
What do they call them? CC&Rs for Stockbridge?
CSAN, I'm not sure I know what that is. I'm new to all this.
Are there association bylaws?
Yes, there are for Stockbridge.
There are, but not on that home, so I believe, my neighbors can correct me if I'm wrong, the first, I think 3 houses on that street, ours included, are not technically part of the homeowners association.
Okay.
The rest of the street is, and they had been in legal litigation with them previously.
Okay.
And what happened, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but the people they were in litigation against sold the home, so all of that went away, and now it's still unmaintained. So their new homeowners in the last 3 years have propagated the problem without doing anything to the property for another 3 years. And these are the people we can't contact.
I am aware of the parsnip problem. I have the pasture that's due south. And the cows will eat it, but not all of it.
Thank you. It's an important issue. I think we should take it up at another select board meeting. And I think we'll also let you know, which meeting that is so that you can come attend and we can get into it in more depth.
Great.
Appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Happy to.
Yes.
I just like to point out, James Barker, I live in Stockbridge. There are a number of Stockbridge neighbors here. And I wonder if we could all just raise our hands and show support of this.
Wow. Not the library. Well, it's really a serious issue, so thank you for coming out in numbers. And
can I just ask to have your email address either for a representative or as many of you want to on the summary sheet, so when this is scheduled, I can email you and let you know.
And we'll get it on as soon as we can.
Just a point of clarification, my Lobsang is also in Stockbridge. I may be wrong, but I think I'm right, that all the homes in there are subject to a planned residential development. There's 3 or 4 of the homes that for one reason or another are not a member of the homeowners association. But all 20 homes are part of the
original
Holmberg planned residential development.
There are actually 2 developments, and we live in, on the property adjacent to it. So the first 4 houses have protective covenants which are not specific enough to enforce the maintenance of the property. And then the balance of Stockbridge homes are in a separate homeowners association, and they have protective covenants which are somewhat more detailed. But I can provide you with a background, but we were a party to seeing if we could engage the Ableys over years and years and years to maintain their property. I mean, the property is very run down. It's a nuisance. We've noticed bobcats, actually an entire kit of bobcats in their porch, and animals on the property and so forth. But anyway, we did reach a settlement with them. I can provide this in a summary if that would be helpful to the next meeting without taking up time today.
It would, and any other research that you have as far as ordinances, sample ordinances, if you could get that all to Dean, then we'll have something to review and can kind of get this on a faster track.
Okay.
That would be very helpful.
Deloria. Chuck. Charles.
Yeah, any other comments on this subject or others? Okay, just to let you know, I'm looking at the our June 10th draft, and it is pretty full, but I think by June 24th, definitely be able to take this up with some significant time. So I appreciate it.
Everybody leaves.
Stockbridge Road is a development.
Stockbridge Road is the development over off from
Mount Philo Road. Yeah, from that, yes.
Right.
Yep. That's at the end?
Fire Pond Road is the road off from Stockbridge Road.
Those 2 roadways cover, I think that covers.
Two Holmbergs. Old house. Wow, that's amazing.
2 open fields, one of which is mine.
Where is the house?
It's, you know where my open field and the cows are?
Yeah, all the way up to Mount Philo.
Delorier's is the first house on Mount Philo.
Okay.
The next address in.
It's the brick one?
No, the brick one is Delorier's. Okay. The next one is this wood.
And then the
blends
next
right
one,
in with the weeds and the trees. You can't see it.
And then the next one was the Lawlesses.
Yes.
And then they sold. So it's between Lawlesses and Deloria.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Where's your gavel?
I should use that.
Yeah, there you go. Built-in gavel.
Yeah, and you cast. Break the cast. Great. So the 7:05 agenda item, the agricultural lease at Charlotte Park and Wildlife Refuge. 2 items, amending the term of the lease to December 31st, 2019, and assigning the lease to Thomas Cariana.
is here.
Great, did I pronounce it correctly? For the remainder of the term. Jenny or Sue, do you want to bring us up to speed?
Let's see. There are 2 more years in the existing lease. Tom has been doing some of the work at the fields. Last year, he was doing work over there. The park committee met with him, and he wants to use the fields this year. You were working with Clark, and he talked about his ideas and approach to work in general. But what we're wanting to do right now is to make this lease possible for the remainder of this year with the lease being assigned to Tom, and then we would be seeking a new lease next year. So this would be just the lease for the remainder of this year. And I don't know, Tom probably would like to talk about his what he plans to do.
Well, sure. As stated, I worked with Clark last year. I'm a young, small farmer. I raise cattle on just a grass-fed basis, mostly on certified organic property. But my main emphasis is on soil restoration. So everything that I'm doing is mainly in soil rebuilding and leaving things better than I thought. So when Clark came to me and said, again, through the transactions he's had with his farm, Nordic Farm, he was exiting out of farming and wanted to let me know, since I was green and growing, if I needed more land, which I had asked him, was actively seeking. So he approached me, and that's when he approached the committee about amending the lease and seeing if that was passed through. We sat down May 6th, the committee, I believe, and made sure we were all like-minded in what we were doing on the park. Again, leaving things clearly funded, make improvements not only on an agricultural basis, but also for the recreational aspects of the park. So there was a nice balance there. Addressing key concerns mainly was due to the bird life and wildlife. The bird life primarily was a key concern that we're still trying to work out on the lands, because one of the aspects of mowing or planting or doing anything on the grass is upsetting the habitat for bird hatching, which is there. So my agreement was to work actively with the board and with the Audubon Society to find balance between what nature is doing and what maintains the aesthetic aspects of the park. Some other aspects in there were again, just basically the board talking about past experience and some of the issues they've had with different agricultural practices that have led to concern, damage in the park. And so I confirmed that I don't practice any of these aspects, and what I do, again, is for soil building, and that in the end, I hope it's greener than I leave it at. So I use smaller equipment. I don't use anything synthetic, no pesticides, no herbicides, nothing. I don't plant any corn or do any tillage, any of these aspects that they had concerns about, that not only would alter the soil itself, but also alter the aesthetic that's very important for that piece of property. It's absolutely gorgeous. So it's by far the nicest piece of the most beautiful view I've seen. If no one's been there, just gotta take a walk. It's pretty phenomenal. So we had a great meeting, and we left it, I believe, like-minded, and had correspondence afterward. I reached out to Dean and started the conversation of what was necessary to move things forward, and we I presented paperwork to him and the idea, and then recently it came about that through consultation with the attorney, that it was best to have this lease amended, And so I submitted the necessary paperwork that was required of me as far as insurance and agricultural plan, which was a summary of the conversation I had with the park. And I will be meeting with Mr. Hinsdale hopefully within the week to get the necessary paperwork signed to allow that to happen if everything here is given the thumbs up. That's about it.
That's a very succinct explanation of a long process.
Just going by memory.
Nice. Where is the home base of your farming?
Heinsberg.
Heinsberg.
Yeah.
Great.
You plan to hay, graze, or both?
Well, so this season we're talking about haying, and we'll, the best thing for the land would be to graze, but obviously the park is largely used for recreation too. So we will discuss in the future if that is an option, because it is the best for both the environment, the birds, everything. If it was grazed, everything, all those solutions could be solved as far as an agricultural entity, but because it's a diversified property and there's people that enjoy running, walking, and doing very, flying kites. Someone was in there last year doing, so all those aspects, it'll be a conversation with the park committee, and I'll be submitting, a summation at the year end with the bid for the renewal for next season, outlining a little bit more about what can be done on the long term, there to remedy and move forward that property. It's fantastic.
So we have a prepared First Amendment to the lease, and then a leasee's assignment of the lease and assumption by the assignee, which would also need to be consented by the town.
Right. One thing that's still a little bit unclear is how many acres would be used, or late mowing would be dedicated to late mowing, so that would reduce the lease amount. Did the park committee discuss that today?
Jen can speak to that.
Yeah, the park committee just met, and that was one of the things we discussed. We need to do more research before we really know what we're going to do with any additional fields. So we thought that the lease it should just remain as it is right now. And then during the year, learn more about the fields, and maybe with the new lease, there might be some additional units that would be delayed mowing. I think we can all work together on observing the fields. We're planning to talk to Ottawa and Vermont and get somebody to come out and help with that. So
it would be for 113 acres, is that the correct amount?
it would be 113 acres. Whatever it is right now
Okay.
would remain the same, but that was, yes.
Okay. And is the Galbraith parcel of interest, or is that?
That's not part of it.
Right, but it was, I know Clark did.
Is that the triangle across the street? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
AKA the triangle across the street.
Sometimes
How I've been told it what it was.
There's some edits?
No, I was just taking notes.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the First Amendment to the lease for the Charlotte Park and Wildlife Refuge agricultural lease as written, as well as the leasee's assignment of lease and assumption by assignee document, and authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the select board. Thanks.
Do you want to add anything else? So the lease for the triangle across the street?
Yes, friendly amendment, appreciate it. The wildlife park.
Also known as the former Galbraith.
Yes. Yep, yes. Second? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Well, thank you. It's encouraging to know that with the change of hands with that property across the street, that we're in good hands with the lease. So appreciate the good work you're doing.
I'm really excited and happy to be there. It's a great meeting.
Catching up. Catching up. The 7:15 agenda item, contracts for mowing trails and brush hogging town lands. I'll have Dean, I think, bring us up to speed on this one, and we can go from there. That makes sense? Dean, will you bring us up to speed on the next agenda item, the contracts for mowing trails and brush hogging town lands?
Sure. When Select Board approved the mowing contract, you divided it into two contracts with Momo approved for mowing all town lands, and Chris's Lawn Care and mini excavation to mow the town trails and to mulch the trees. Chris's Lawn Care has said he wants to proceed with his mulching the trees, but doesn't want to mow the trails. So Momo has indicated they will mow the trails, but for the price that they bid, which is $2,800. So that is item number one. Item number two is Chris's Lawn Care mini excavation was also approved for brush hogging town lands, and they've indicated that they don't want to proceed with that. So that is up for discussion. There were other bidders, and the results of that are in your packet.
So we want to look at these one at a time?
Yeah.
So the first one is in consideration of selecting a new contractor that bid on the town mowing and the land maintenance bids for the trails. We had two bids, and the one that was awarded it for $2,000 is requesting to back out and has not signed a contract at this point with the town. So there's no obligation at this point, even though we made a selection. Is there a motion to award this to the other bidder? Dale Mills. Second?
Yep, I'll second it.
If there's no more discussion, is there discussion? All those in favor of selecting Momo and Dale Knowles as for the town mowing and land maintenance bids for 2019 for the trails, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Well, yeah, and thank you for honoring your bid, and kind of unusual, but appreciate you being there. The next item is the comparison of the brush hogging bids. We received 5 bids. We have the same spreadsheet that we looked at during the bidding process.
So which one are we doing?
This would be the total. So this was awarded all of the brush hogging to one contractor.
I just do want to note that this bid contract is not just for brush hogging, but also includes weed whacking and, in some cases, hand pulling, hand cutting around trees. There are quite a few trees on the properties that the town brush hogs. So it's, I would say, needs a careful touch.
From past experience, with the first 3 contractors that submitted the lowest prices, I've found Adam Dancher's work to be impeccable, a real attention to detail, an incredible care and attention to the town lands, and always kind of, Adam is forward thinking in what's a better way to approach the work he's doing with the town lands. And so even though he is not the next lowest bidder, I have full confidence that that's going to be the best value for the town. And any additional work is also at a lower price. So
The landfill seems to be the big difference.
That's a big area.
That's 36 acres if you're cutting, you're not 18.
Has anybody heard from Mac Farm?
You're also cutting a tremendous amount of sumacs.
So I mean, there's a lot of money on the table there. I just wondered if there was
Well, I would
a question in the
suggest,
scope of work or not.
I'm Dale Knowles, I would suggest to award the bid to Adam because the Mac Farm is quite a lot behind this year because of the rain. And they haven't got no corn planted yet, so, I mean, one hand wash the other. They're gonna be right straight when the weather breaks. So your brush hogging might get waylaid till August, September. That's my opinion.
I'm for making a motion for Adam Dancher to take over the brush hogging if he so desires.
I'll second it.
That's half of the thing.
Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of awarding the brush hogging bids for 2019 for the town lands to Adam Dancher, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. Thank you, and appreciate your patience and being willing to commit to the bid. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, at one point you wanted to do pumpkins there, and then, so there was an added value potential. 7:37. Oh, we're really getting close. 7:30 agenda item, Thompson's Point agricultural lease.
So the select board awarded this to Mac Farms. There was a question raised by Mac Farms regarding the acreage, and I had Darrell look at it. He went down there, recalculated it to be 45 acres. I sent a letter to Robert Mack and said, you know, he needs to sign a lease and provide the necessary deposit. He didn't respond to that. He was in the office today and asked about the possibility of tilling a portion of it. Currently the lease has been no-till, hay only, and he wondered about tilling a portion of it to plant hemp with plastic cover. So that would be a change, and you know, he's not here to explain it.
He did catch up with me about the specifics of the changes he's looking for. It may need to be something that he comes in, and I think for the board to feel comfortable to act on would be my guess. The tilling detail would be doing rows 8 feet apart and maintaining a very short height to the hay in the fields between the rows, to try and maintain the driest possible field or conditions for the industrial hemp. So that's his ideal use for that. Currently in the lease, it is only permitted for haying. So if the select board wanted to amend the lease to allow that, that's an option.
I guess two considerations I would say. One is it's been in hay because the concern about runoff to the lake. So if it is to go to a tilled situation, I would suggest providing a sizable buffer to the ditch and the road. The other is it's getting very close to needing haying, and yeah, as I guess we've heard, seems to be a lag in being able to get on the fields for other purposes. So I think if it's not to be brush hogged, if it's going to be something that is actually making the town money versus spending money, it seems like there needs to be a pretty quick decision on what the next lessee will be or who the next lessee will be and what they'll be doing.
I think if you're gonna change the use, you gotta open it up to rebid.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. You're changing the use so that you open up for rebid.
I think another thing to consider is Thompson's Point is, it's an aesthetic concern to the town. I mean, we get a fair amount of income from Thompson's Point. And if you're gonna, I would like there, like homeowners or something to weigh in, because, if you're gonna.
Well, if it's something other than hang, you're gonna have a lot more equipment down there, you're gonna be down there more often.
Yes, he mentioned the need drip irrigation.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot more infrastructure that's gonna be needed and stuff, so I think it's something that should be looked at.
For next year's.
That's what I would recommend.
Well, if we're not gonna hay it, then are we gonna open it up to other row crops or just hemp or?
Well, again,
All the discussion.
that can all be
Yeah.
part of the new use
Yes.
and for a new lease.
Okay. So then the decision point really is, does the select board want to set a timeline for the lease to be finalized?
Or select the second bidder,
Or select a second lease?
who is doing hay and is ready
wants
to.
to.
Yep.
Well, I guess if we're gonna get out of the lease, we have to have a current, well, we don't have a lease, do we?
There is no
There's
lease
no
in
lease right
force
now.
currently,
Nope.
and no payment has been made.
It is I believe we advertised for a 5-year lease, so it's not year to year, it's 5 years.
So who's the,
Chris Fortin is the other bidder for $10 an acre.
Which was
Third.
a third, yeah, $30, and then $10 was the next bid.
I mean, the thing is Rubber Mac bid on this at the point knowing that it was for hay only. So,
would say if he doesn't want the hay
If he-
only, then it goes to the next guy.
So then,
he can withdraw his bid.
what, or we can, I think it's probably, because we're managing the land, I'd be more comfortable if we set a firm date that the bid we awarded the lease to starts, finalizes the bid and starts the work.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I
and then-
did. I mean, I sent him a letter saying.
You did, and I think the next step would be for the board to do that and then move forward from there. Have you reached out to Chris to see if
Yep.
he's interested?
Yep.
And he could do a quick turnaround on doing first cut when it's ready?
I believe so.
So do you want to set a timeline, or?
Well, this says May 24th in this letter.
Yeah, Dean sent this to him, to have a push, and, we could either.
Let's have it by the end of the week. I mean,
Great.
so next meeting, it'll be a
I kind of agree.
2-minute thing.
It'd be a quick decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Make a motion?
To do that, yes.
Second?
Sure.
So, if I understand the motion, it's to allow Robert until Friday at 4 PM to provide a.
I guess it would be Monday.
Security deposit of $500?
Yeah.
Well, the meeting is Monday.
Yeah, so if we haven't received it by the meeting, it goes to the next bidder.
Yeah. And providing a certificate of insurance with commercial general liability coverage of $1 million minimum. And naming the town of Charlotte as an additional insured before initiating any work.
Okay, what time on Monday?
5:59? We have a 6 o'clock meeting?
Here, here. Given every opportunity possible.
Okay,
Yeah.
that way we know.
Yeah. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. 4-0. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dean, for following up with that. Getting closer. 7:40. Request for bids for a wastewater maintenance system.
So just a little review. This had been on a previous agenda. I think it was a week when Fritz wasn't here. And so select board didn't act on it. I also got a little bit more feedback from an engineer who's been helping with maintenance of the pump station. So there have been a couple of additional tasks, but just looking for feedback.
Two-year tasks, is it to us? Are we writing a 2-year? How do we do that?
We would probably have a 1-year contract and just have our own tickler to remember every other year to add in additional
So
items.
for the first year, it would include these.
Right.
2019, and then next year it wouldn't.
Right.
Camera investigation of laterals.
That was the addition by the engineer who was working on the pump station. I have to say, I'm not technically savvy to know what that means.
I mean, in our buildings, there's certainly
Yeah, I mean, it's
scopes.
the lateral that goes to the senior center, the fire department. I think the library goes to the town and then to.
Yeah, there's a,
So there's 3 laterals. That's probably a good thing. If there's any way we can see if there's, groundwater seeping in. We're running our system a lot more than we need to if it's clean water.
Yeah. Especially with
So
this
there's
water
no-
table.
There's no pressure test in here, is there?
no,
Be pretty hard to pressure test. Okay.
I think it's gravity. It's gravity to the pump station and then pressure out to the leach field.
Yeah.
So it'd be I guess it would be a test out past the pump station.
I mean, it would be yeah, I mean, we don't want to do that. If it fails under the pavement, never mind.
They're looking for trouble.
Ixnay. I'll make a motion to approve the request for bids for the wastewater maintenance system as presented. Authorize the, are we all signing it?
I think just the release.
Just the release, okay.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 4-0. 7:48.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Junior and I submitted a grant application that was funded for replacement of a culvert at 1251 Greenbush Road. The grant is $7,426 and it requires a town match of $825.
Do you expect anyone else interested in this agenda item to be attending? As far as
No.
waiting until 8?
I don't, but since there's a little bit of time, I don't know if you want to, it may be premature, but we were also awarded a grant for paving Ferry Road. And that's a more sizable grant, more sizable match. But it probably means people will drive faster on Ferry Road.
Unless we get those fog lines in right after.
So, but that's in next year's, that would be next year's bid. Right, okay.
Great.
Well, this is in,
It's in our next fiscal year, which starts July 1.
And what was the match? Do you know, offhand, or?
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head.
Is that something that you budget for, or the match is something the town
No.
finds somewhere else? It's in the highway budget, got it.
Same with the culvert.
Yeah.
just a culvert under the town road.
Correct. It's, no, the culvert is not under a town road. It's a driveway culvert. This one here is a driveway culvert at 1251 Greenbush. It's actually Meg Berlin's driveway. Where what had happened was when the culvert was originally put in, I don't know when, before we had culvert standards in force, there was a tank put in there and then a piece of culvert added to it for length. We've been having, this past winter, we had a couple times with 6-8 inches of water over Greenbush Road because of the culvert backed up.
All the normal expected problems with the substandard culvert.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the grant BC 111992 to replace the culvert at 1251 Greenbush Road with a town match of $825.15. Come out of the road fund?
Yes, comes out of the culvert line item.
Get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Louise.
I just want to check on ability to sign the agreement. Are you
Yeah.
around? Okay.
Sorry.
And have the chair sign.
Or
do we have to sign it?
Chair or co-chair, if that's okay.
Vice chair.
Vice chair. I like co-chair. Is that a friendly amendment, Louise?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Great, all those in favor of the motion as made, indicate by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? I have a question about, on Mount Philo Road, the Irish's old, the Irish's old property. The Irish's, just north of Laurier's. There's been a washout on the north side of that driveway. They've done some work with a retaining wall, maybe like a mile south of the school intersection.
Oh, by Dorsey's?
Yeah.
Crossing Dorsey's?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that because of a culvert failure, or it's filled?
No, that's because of they
Pushed.
redid the drive.
Yeah.
And what it is they widened the drive at the bottom and they put in a stone retaining wall. But they did not
Ditch.
make a ditch for the water to come. I have talked to them.
Okay.
They're supposed to fix that because I told them, if it's not fixed before winter and it freezes up, it's not the town's responsibility.
That's a
It'll be
glacier.
their responsibility.
Yeah.
It's water coming out of their drive, so it is supposed to be fixed.
I didn't know if that was on your radar. It sounds like.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Are we
Thanks.
still looking for that work in the town right-of-way ordinance that we talked about?
Yeah, I don't think,
I tried to get very far, but we need to try again.
It's on the work plan. It'll be on a future agenda.
Thank you.
Somewhere there's a draft of that.
Yeah. We'll bring it back.
Dean, do we?
You could do minutes, or you could have Abby talk about food scrap. I don't think there's any.
Are you okay with presenting earlier?
Yeah,
I loaded it
yeah, I changed a little bit.
further.
I don't know if you're leery of taking this. It's called.
I think it's frame. There's a problem with this drive. Scan the drive down and fix it. No.
Nice to see you all. So, go to the next slide, please.
Hey, Matt, do you have the speakers? I think we're on the food track survey.
Yes, where do I need to sit?
Some way to get a little better audio, I'd appreciate it.
Would that be here?
It's actually just closer to this device.
Or no, you can.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Are you listening to VCAM also?
No, I can't listen, you know, not only am I technology limited, but I'm in a place where we don't have Wi-Fi or something. I just kind of jimmy this up, so no.
Okay.
But I read all all the results, and I appreciate the hard work. So just whatever, you know, anything you can do to speak loudly, I appreciate it.
Do you want me to sit over there?
If you want.
All right. As long as I can, yeah. I'm Abby Folk. I'm the Charlotte representative to the Chittenden Solid Waste District Board of Commissioners. Can you hear me now, please?
Yes, thank you very much. That's great.
Okay. So just a few updates. The Recreation Committee, the town, the library, and the senior center joined together to apply for a container grant from Chittenden Solid Waste, and it was awarded to our town. So we now have 3 sets of those portable containers on the left for events held in public spaces, but also for private events in town. And we have had the toters available at school. There are 2 sets of those, and those are more for events in public spaces. But I just wanted you to be aware of that and to thank CSWD and the people who applied for the grant, and to encourage people to spread the word for using it in events. And this is the legacy of the 2nd graders who are now 8th graders graduating. They came and presented to the select board to get the town to adopt a policy to that effect. So it's pretty cool. So regarding Act 48 and food scrap diversion updates, July 1st, 2020 is coming, and all generators must divert food scraps regardless of distance from composting facilities. So that has not changed. There's been a change in the hauler requirements. Next slide, please. So this bill, S-160, was approved by the Senate and the House. I don't know the status of it. I don't think it's yet signed by Governor Scott, but it basically changes the hauler requirements so that they only need to offer to non-residential customers in apartment buildings with 4 or more residential units collection of food residuals. So that means that a majority of houses in Charlotte, for example, are single units, and haulers will not have the requirement to offer curbside service for organics. They still could decide to do it, but they're not required to. And the last sentence in that section that says commercial haulers shall not be required to offer collection of food residuals if another commercial hauler provides collection services for food residuals in the same area and has sufficient capacity to provide services to all customers. I'm not sure of the intent behind that. It's a little vague. I know that a lot of the stakeholders consulted with the legislature on this revision. I'm wondering if maybe it's a nod to sort of the business model and the financial issues incumbent upon haulers, you know, that if they don't have density of route and they have to invest in truck equipment, it could be that this is sort of a nudge towards consolidated collection, distributed differently in towns than what we have now with, 4 private or 5 private haulers in our town. I don't know, but it looks like that to me. You might want to ask the CSWD people when they come here later.
And I'm going to give my 2 cents here, which on this issue, which is the consolidation, which is, and we're not anywhere near that. And let me just digress a bit and thank you for all your hard work. I think this stuff is very, very important. But we have to be very careful as we approach the consolidation issue, because if you don't do it right, you end up being a price and quality regulator, which is something that it's very serious to take on. So that's kind of, that's my 2 cents. You probably hear it a lot of times. But it would be great to solve this organic waste problem. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, right. And I think that's the gist of this presentation tonight is like, how are we going to solve it? Yeah, because hopefully we really do care about diverting food scraps and complying with the law. Yeah. Okay, so now shifting to the survey results. The intent of the survey, I really think it was perhaps to get more qualitative information than quantitative information. And yeah, it was to really highlight the household diversion deadline to people in town, present a continuum of food scrap management possible options, to get ideas from people, to gauge their opinion about benefits or barriers that might result from a town-wide program of some sort, to help make resource connections, like if farmers want food scraps or chicken owners want food scraps, to connect them with people who are willing to take it to them, along with how can we use some of the agricultural wastes and byproducts that we have in town, like Nordic Farms is just about to have hops and all of these resources. How can we locally utilize those resources and sort of match make situations?
Just a point of clarification. I think they're growing barley, not hops, but it's
okay.
the same.
Thanks,
I mean,
that's good clarification. And I also just wanted to identify sort of interested volunteers, people who would be available to give technical support about home composting, or people who might want to help other people install a green cone solar digester, things like that. So yes, my survey design was quite flawed, and it's hard to design a survey. I got lots of comments that were really helpful from a qualitative point of view, but by asking everyone to answer all that applied to the questions led to very messy data. So my apologies, I'm not a survey designer. So we gave the survey in March. It was advertised on sort of traditional outreach methods through Front Porch Forum, the newspapers, and paper surveys were disseminated at 6 locations around town and also on town meeting day. And we got 226 responses. I don't know the total number of Charlotte households that was represented in those responses. And like the previous survey we did on drop-off center interest, this definitely it was not a random sample. It was self-selecting people responding, but it just gives us a little bit of insight into what the citizen attitude is about this. And then the link to the actual the survey is going to be available on the town website and advertised on Front Porch Forum as well. Has all the comments. Okay, so the summary of results. I think I'm going to deviate from what I included in my PowerPoint just to read from my phone notes to just really condense the summary. So, in general, I think that people in Charlotte understand the value of composting, the need to reduce food waste and turn it into a resource for soil health. I also think we heard that they need help with infrastructure, both with bins that are workable, are affordable, and convenient enough for them to use. They need help with bin management and troubleshooting problems of what goes wrong if your pile gets stinky. There's a lot of fear of rats. And for me, it feels like because I know how to best manage a compost pile, I feel like those fears would be alleviated if people, learn best management practices. Everyone is seeking the lowest cost and the most convenient option. in addition to maybe valuing the environmental aspects of this. They see a need for options, though. That came through loud and clear, that there's an understanding that not everyone is able to home compost, and that certainly there are seasonal limitations with a backyard compost pile in winter, and that a lot of people are choosing not to process meat and dairy, so they would love to have a local place to take those materials seasonally and or year-round. They like the idea of keeping things as local as possible, reducing transportation. Like a lot of people might go to Williston, Redmond Road, and not pay anything for their compost drop-off, but they're driving a lot. People also like the idea of utilizing the local resources like we talked about before. They're open to cooperating to reduce costs when possible, but this is also countered by an existing loyalty to their hauler. So there's concern about the whole issue of consolidation, not only from what you were pointing out, Louise, but from loyalty to their existing relationships. They're very confused by the hauler's business model for food scraps collection and the fee structures currently in place. And I am confused by that too. There are a lot of mixed messages about what it costs to deposit things where. There are fears about fairness, affordability, and increases in property taxes. There's precedent in other towns to fold that into, basically like a utility into property tax. Westford does that. But there are fears about that here. And so I think it will take a clear explanation as to what is most convenient and affordable. And there are models elsewhere to pull on, like Westford has a consolidated hauling contract for the last 20 years. They pay 30% less than most people do here. I don't know what they're going to do about the organics aspect. Hardwick, for a while, had a drop-off center in one location with toters that was open 24/7 to the public and went on for 4 years, relatively problem-free, and it was subsidized by Central Vermont Solid Waste Management District, and they only stopped it because they have hired a single hauler for organics for their district, and that's Grow Compost. And then there are organics-only haulers like Earth Girl, Grow Vermont, No Waste Compost. There are limitations to what their service area is, and I don't know about availability here, but I'm just saying these are other models elsewhere. Okay, skipping along. So are there questions or?
Yeah. On the, if it gets, like you said, consolidated and becomes one thing, what about the commercial businesses? Are they part of that?
So in Westford, for their consolidated hauling contract, which is for currently recycling and trash, it's 6 commercial entities in their town and 852 households.
Right, but
So,
I'm talking about the pay for it. I mean, what is the difference in the cost between a commercial business and a residence?
yeah, so there are a lot of uncertainties with that. I can tell you what, I have a slide about later about the tipping, the fee structure as I know it to be. And on the household side, there's not, I can't give you a precedent for what it is in Chittenden County because I'm not sure that those services are being offered anywhere. I know that for like a commercial business, like at school, or that with our current contract, it's approximately $15 a week per 64-gallon toter. Well, a household isn't going to have a 64-gallon toter. They're going to have a little bucket.
Right.
So I don't think I can give the answer, and I'm not sure a hauler could either.
Right. And you talked about a couple small businesses that are doing just
right.
Just food scrap.
Yes.
Removal.
Okay. Yeah,
and
so
if there's anything here, or you think it's going to be an opportunity for somebody to start that here.
Right. It could be an opportunity, definitely. The precedent for that, I looked at no waste compost, and I think they're charging per household something like $12 a month for hauling food scraps. But I don't really know what Earth Girl charges, and I don't know how the haulers are going to make it worth their while, actually.
I mean, because it's a totally different, it's all different equipment.
Yep.
That they need for this. So it's going to be an extra truck going around town to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Frank Louise, I agree with that comment, and there's got to be, and first of all, I want to thank you very much for all your hard work on this issue. And there's got to be a creative solution, which we're kind of not, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I think I mentioned to you when I was talking about it, you know, I used to trench compost, which AKA is burying it, which is actually not a bad way to do it. But yeah, it's an important issue. Maybe we can kind of come up with something pretty creative. But what I took out of the survey was, you know, as it always is, it needs to be simple, and winter's an issue.
Winter is an issue, yeah.
Yeah.
So, any other questions or comments? I'm kind of not really here to tell you what we should do, but what are your thoughts about next steps or?
Somebody needs to invent a food truck. Instead of handling 2 toters, hand just 3.
And inexpensive. I mean, I think they are.
Well, if they collect it all at the same time. Right now they can split recyclable and trash.
Yeah, so there's the hauler is seen as there are 3 or 4 commercial haulers of big, you know, with big, who do have a lot of infrastructure. There's Casella, Myers, Gothier. I think that on one of the slides at the end, Dean, there's a list of, and that was taken off of CSWD's licensed hauling companies page. So, but again, there's still a fair amount of uncertainty about the household service level.
Well, the catch is coming to your house with a separate machine. Someone can figure out how to collect it with the other 2 things at the same time.
Yeah, I had a hard time. I think it was Fritz. I had a hard time hearing what Fritz wanted to say, but I think the easy part is collecting it within the home. There is an issue, and it came out in your survey about dairy and meat, which I think, you know, it needs to be addressed. But that's the easy part. The hard part is figuring out what do you do then. And I mean, I know this is exactly what you've been talking about, and I'm wondering if. And since we're not the only people in this situation, whether there are some other creative ideas about what to do. But you know, I think that what I gathered from the survey is I think that by and large, and as you pointed out early on in your presentation, it's a self-selecting survey. It seemed that there was people who are willing to do this. It has to be easy and affordable.
Yep. Okay. One idea that I have that isn't so much about collection is that we could perhaps look into doing bulk orders to lower the price of green cone solar digesters, which is not so much a compost bin, but a way to manage your food scraps by digesting it. And so it's like you install it in the ground. There's a little bit of a challenge with Charlotte soils being clay, but this is something that Central Vermont Solid Waste District has been doing for like 13 years. And they have a lot of people who are managing their compost in an easier way, as long as the installation is correct, than making compost in a compost bin. So that's a possibility. We can certainly offer more home compost trainings and demonstrations and support to people. We had talked before about possibly investigating a pilot program that would typically not run for a whole year, but would run for a pretty short period of time to see about its efficacy. And that would be looking at either 1 or 2 locations with a limited number of toters, and you would put it out to bid for probably one of the larger haulers who already haul organics. And that we could look into a Chittenden Solid Waste District waste reduction grant. That is a 50-50 matching grant. And I'm not totally sure about the hauler fee being covered under that. And I want to sort of interrupt myself to say that Sarah Reeves from Chittenden Solid Waste District is here, along with Michelle Morris. And I invite you to add anything that you would like to interject at this moment.
I did. So I'm Michelle, the Director of Outreach and Communications, and we administer the grants in my department. I think that to address the meat and the dairy, that actually doesn't have to go in compost. That can still go in the trash under the Act 148 regulations. So that doesn't have to be dealt with in that way. We could, depending on how the request is structured, certainly it could cover something in a pilot program. I would love to see, working with the hauler possibly to decrease or defer their fee for the duration of a pilot, and that could be considered an in-kind portion of the grant to meet your 50% match, if you could persuade somebody to do that for the potential market that they might be developing. It's just one thought.
And the meat comment is well taken, but a lot of people are motivated here to divert their meat. So good for them.
Sure.
Yeah. We could also research just curbside, just continue researching curbside options and see what that would really mean in terms of if that were a shared situation within the town, what it would look like, and really give people a sense of the numbers. So that's what I came up with. And Dean also mentioned to me about the fiscal, sort of thinking about a pilot, sort of segueing into town meeting the fiscal year FY 2021 budget as to whether or not we want to go that route. Or you want to go that route.
Right, you talked about a town-wide collection, and then you talked about maybe being part of your taxes or something like that. What happens to the people that don't want to be a part of it?
Right,
and what do they have to prove to the town to not have it on their taxes?
I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with this. I would be, just personally, someone who would go from paying very, very, very little for all of my trash and compost. I'm paying like $40 a year to it being considerably more. But I'm one of those people who would be, well, if this meant that the entire town could really be doing a good job reducing our waste and sorting it correctly, that would make me happy, and I would pay that. So you'll have people all across the board in reactions to that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying if this is the way it's going to be, is there a process? I'm just looking.
I would hope
I'm
so.
just looking at. I'm just looking at the process of,
Yeah.
of an exemption or waiver or whatever
Right.
you'd have to
Be a
do.
waiver program.
Yeah,
Or
I would
waiver.
assume.
In Westford, I think they it's something like $20 a month for everybody for recycling and trash now, not organics, and it's somehow attached to property tax and exemptions there. I don't really know. I don't have a lot of details, and this is way beyond my knowledge base. So I'm sure there's a lot to.
I think it's
Yeah.
on the town budget that gets
Yeah.
paid through property taxes, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. And if it were, it depends on, if you were going for something like 2 drop-off places, like Hardwick did, or 1, that I do sort of project that this is very rough, but the cost per year would be something, if you had 16 64-gallon toters, it would be something like $15 a year per household. That's very little money. But it's not to belittle people's concern. If it were curbside hauling, it would probably be more than that.
Okay. Good information.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I didn't have the whole presentation if we can't, but can I give my presentation? Is there any other questions that come up?
Yeah.
Happy to talk about it.
I was sitting here because there's a select board member who's on the phone.
For the, I don't know, it's kind of like normal spot or
Closer
there.
to this,
It's completely up to you
project
guys.
your voice. I think Louise will let us know if she can't hear you.
Okay, sure.
The 8:30 agenda item, a little early, if that's okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah, what's your last name? My last name is Reeves, R-E-E-V-E-S, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chittenden Solid Waste District.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the slot on the agenda. I know it's got a busy night, so thank you. So again, my name is Sarah Reeves. I'm the Executive Director for CSWD. And as a reminder, CSWD is a municipality, and we were created in 1987 through Act 78 to implement solid waste management mandates legislated by the state of Vermont. So we function much in the way a regional planning commission or a water district.
Here, in fact, we have only one choice for hauler, right?
Show me to come up.
What's that, Louise?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. That was totally unintended. I was on mute. I was speaking to my sister at Lake Tahoe, and it's a very, very difficult family situation. But we were talking about, we're talking about trash, man. We're talking. And here there's only one choice of a hauler, and anyway. So I'm sorry. I forgot to put it on mute because I was listening to the budget presentation. Anyway, there you go. Always remember to put it on mute.
No problem.
No worries. So CSWD is the largest solid waste district in the state, and we do happen to encompass all of Chittenden County, so we have 18 members. We serve over 156,000 people, over 6,000 businesses. We have approximately 50 employees in 5 main different areas: administration, finance, compliance, facilities or operations, and outreach and communication. We also either own or operate 5 main different types of operations: our drop-off centers, our environmental depot, which is our household hazardous waste facility, the Rover, which is our mobile household hazardous waste facility, the materials recovery facility for blue bin materials, and our compost center. So what I'd like to do is kind of go over some of the higher level dollars and then talk about some of the changes that we've been undergoing over the past 18 months or so, because that will lead into certainly what we're doing with this budget, but also future budgets. So it's kind of giving you a heads up. So for fiscal 20, we are anticipating revenues in the amount of $12,628,865. We're anticipating expenses in the amount of $11,450,520. Our capital and allocations amount to approximately $665,468, leaving us with a net of $331,719. And that net actually gets transferred into a solid waste management fee rate stabilization fund. So that brings us down to 0. So over the past 12 to 18 months, we've been focusing on our infrastructure. And you may remember this conversation from last year where I said we're talking a lot about how we do things. This past year, we implemented an entirely new financial system with the goal of hopefully making all of our reports on our website much easier for anyone to read, so that you don't have to be an accountant or have a finance degree to understand what's going on. You can go and read our reports and know where the money is going. So that was a huge undertaking, and we're pretty proud of that. The other 3 pieces that we focused on were our compost operation,
our materials recovery facility, and our drop-off centers. We started with the compost operation because of, as Abby was talking about, the deadline with Act 148 coming up next year. So we knew that already as the largest composter of food scraps, we're anticipating receiving even more. So this year we're expecting to have composted 6,000 tons. We're looking to most likely be needing to accept upwards of 10,000 tons. So we knew we needed to figure something out to be able to handle that amount of material. Over the course of the year, we came to the realization that one of the issues that was hindering us was that we were trying to operate in a retail market as a municipality. That means we were selling a lot of bag products and making bags, products, 12 different products, selling them to Cape Cod, to the North Shore of Boston. We were looking at New York City, trying to sell the bags. And we realized we were never going to actually recover the cost to make those bags. So we literally brought everything back home, and we are focusing as of July 1, no more bags, just doing wholesale and bulk products. The remainder of our bag inventory is out there, so if you like the bag products, go search them out and find them. As of July 1, it's just wholesale and bulk. You will still be able to find Green Mountain compost in local nurseries and garden centers, that we already find our bags and our other wholesale, so we'll continue to work with those partners, but we will no longer be offering bags. So that was the first really big shift for us. And in essence, I would recommend that you call Dan and talk to him about that, because we do have some, we do want to continue to supply local landscapers and things as wholesale customers. I think mainly all you need to do is to be able to set up an account with us, and that will qualify you as a wholesale customer. There may be some minimum requirements as well, minimum number of cubic yards a year, but if you talk to Dan Goosen, he will be able to set that up with you for sure. And yes, working again with our local landscapers who have been great customers of ours for a long, long time. So we're doing that in order to kind of get back to basics and focus on managing organics instead of trying to continue to compete in a retail world. To that, what that has done is that has obviously, it has in this budget decreased our expenses, has also decreased our revenue. We are still highly subsidizing this operation. We will be increasing the tip fee or the user fee at compost. It is now $52 a ton for food scraps. July 1 will be $60 a ton. Putting that in a bit of perspective, if you are to bring a load of trash, just regular trash, to the Coventry landfill or to one of the transfer stations here in the district, you can expect to spend between $125 and $150 a ton. So even at $60 a ton for food scraps, it still makes sense to divert those food scraps out. Next year, as I was talking about, it will be the law anyway, to have everyone divert. So we're trying to maintain that balance to make sure that it's still affordable to do that diversion, knowing that, it is, as you were talking about, an extra truck, it's an extra step, and making sure that we're not overly taxing is in essentially that service. However, we want to make sure that we're also not under pricing. So we're going to be watching the market and making sure that we're operating in a space where we are not overly subsidizing that operation. We did receive a grant from the Agency of Natural Resources, and that's what we'll be working on over the next 18 months as well. So this is, again, kind of a foreshadowing of what we're hoping to do. The grant is to have us look at, it's a construction grant, 2 different ways of potentially handling that excess material. One is straight transfer option, so to be able to take in food scraps to match our leaf and yard debris, make a compost product out of that match, and then transfer the excess food scraps. Another option is to, same thing, to match the leaf and yard with the food scraps to make a compost product, and then to have a depackaging operation. And essentially what that is if you think of food manufacturers or supermarkets that may have packaged product that is no longer suitable for sale or for human consumption, donation, or for animal feed. Right now that's going to the landfill. So if we were to have a facility or an operation that could take the organics out of the package, we would then create basically a slurry of that organics. The packaging would be waste, and then that slurry could either be used for composting or it could be fed to a digester, an anaerobic digester for energy. So we're looking at those two options right now as far as being able to handle the additional material coming in. So that information will go to our board probably in the mid-fall, and they'll have the information as far as what that's going to cost. They will give us a yay or a nay on one of those options, and then by this time next year, that will be implemented. So that's what we're looking at for compost. The other operation, as I mentioned, that we've been focusing on this year has been the material recovery facility. It is one of the 2 single-stream facilities in Vermont. You may recall last year I came and talked about the markets for recyclables being pretty bad. They have gotten worse, if you can believe that. In my 15 plus years of being in this business, it is the worst it has ever been. So we are again having to increase the disposal fee there as well. It is now $55 per ton. We're raising that to $65 per ton on July 1. The Rutland MRF charges $90 a ton at the moment. Albany is about $100. So we do need to again keep an eye on the market to make sure that we're not over subsidizing that facility, but we also don't want to unduly burden Chittenden County residents because they put that investment into that facility. We are still looking at a new facility. It sounds maybe counterintuitive, but we have grown out of this current plant, and in order to be able to compete down the road with the higher quality that we need to be able to sell into this country versus selling outside of the country, we need to have as high quality material as possible and be able to sort as well as we can. And in this particular facility, it was sized for 25,000 tons. We're taking in 48,000 tons. We can't grow, we can't do anything with that. So we are still looking at this. These options are going to be brought first, narrowing down of sites to our board in a few weeks. They will hopefully give us, again, a blessing to look at these 2 sites, bring back more information to them in the fall, and then, again, we're figure out what path to go down there. I tell you this now because we don't have the cash in the bank to pay for this. So I'll be coming back to you much more regularly to talk about the likelihood of a bond. So if we're looking at a bond, it would obviously be countywide. It would probably be in about 2 years or so, with the goal of having the facility constructed in about 3 years. The 3 years is a magic number because that is when a lot more capacity for processing in the region is coming online as far as paper mills and things like that. There's a lot of investment happening now, and more will be coming online within that 2 to 3 year period. So the goal, if again the board agrees to this, would be to have our new facility ready at around the same time to be able to take advantage of the new capacity. But you'll be hearing much more about that from me over the course of the next 10 to 12 months as the board makes decisions.
So I'm not familiar with how bonding with all of the towns works through CSWD. Is that at town meeting?
Well,
as a ballot measure or any? How does that work?
Yeah, so the last time I think that we bonded anything was 25 years ago,
Okay.
so it's not
Explains
unusual that you're not familiar with the process. And I need to learn too what our different options are. Generally, there are 2 that municipalities tend to go with: general obligation or revenue bond. I think we would be looking at revenue bond primarily because we do have the ability to charge a fee for the tip fee, and we do sell the materials coming out of the facility. So I think that's where I would focus our energies first.
So it'd be approving a surcharge on existing fee schedules?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. If we go with, so the way that we would need to talk about it with the towns is that really you would be on the hook if we couldn't pay the bill. And it would be a per capita. So if we are unable to meet those bond payments, we may need to assess each member town, accordingly to be able to make up that difference. So that's why, focusing on a revenue bond versus general obligation, we need to make sure that we have our numbers airtight and that we are confident that we will not need to come to the member communities. And I think if we're looking at, if this is the worst that it is, and you never know, I would always then discount it another 10 or 15% just in case, then we would go from there and say, all right, the worst case scenario, and we're only receiving $35 a ton average for all of the materials. What would that mean if we couldn't pay the bond. So if our payment was $1 million a year and the revenue from the materials plus the tip fee brought us up to $850, we would then have to assess you for the balance. And that would need to be known, obviously, before town meeting day. So in a very small nutshell,
Yeah.
that's what
We
it
got
could
some
look
time
like.
to get to
That's
the
right.
nutshell.
That's right. But so, and that's why I'm coming back to much more regularly to say, here's where we are in this process. This is what we might be looking at. Here's what you might be able to expect. But before any bond went to the voters, you would have all of that information well ahead of time. You'd have
Presentations,
maps. You'd have
hearings.
exactly hearings, presentations. You'd have all the financials in front of you. The voters would have them as well. There would be the drawings for the bill. You know, everything would be essentially good to go if everyone says.
Is it a simple majority of the towns? Is it by per capita of the county?
That's what I need to clarify in our charter.
Okay.
So I am unclear whether it is a simple majority of all of the voters or if it needs to be each individual community is a simple majority.
Got
So that I will clarify, obviously. That's the first thing to clarify.
Right, sure.
So that you know. But the charter is not clear enough for me to be able to say definitively,
Got
here's
it.
what it is.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you. It's a good question. And again, that's why, no surprises, letting you know ahead of time, this could be coming down the road. And it is pending a vote of our board. The board may say, not worth the risk, and then I come back to you next year and say, they said no. But letting you know that in case they do, this is what it may look like. And so the third big chunk that we looked at last year, and we're continuing to look at it, that this is ongoing, is our drop-off centers. We do have in our budget funding for a new drop-off center in Heinsberg. As you know, we had to decommission that temporarily so they could build their garage. The garage is built, and now we're back into the designing phase for Heinsberg. So we're coming to our board this month with some preliminary cost estimates, and that is where I'm hoping they will say again yes or no to proceeding with a new drop-off center in Heinsberg. If it's $1 million, I'm telling you it's going to be no. As my crystal ball, it will not be $1 million. But that's part of the conversation that our board will need to have. So that will be coming up in a few weeks in June. So everyone's very excited about that. There are some minor scheduled fee increases at the drop-off centers. Every 3 years, we take a look at our fees and decide if we need to raise them or not. So we're in year 3 now, so we're going into new fee schedule. So the small bag, the up to 18 gallons, will increase by 25 cents. The medium bag by 50 cents, the large bag by 25 cents. There are a few other small increases on things like furniture, bulky materials, things that have to kind of special handling. We are anticipating the need to increase the mattress fee, we are increasing it a little bit this year, but next year we've already been told by Casella that they will be increasing their fees. So we're going to try to work with them and with the legislature over this year to see if there's some other program that we can come up with as far as a statewide program to mitigate that cost. There are mattress recycling laws similar to our electronics law in California, Connecticut, Rhode Island. So taking a look, do we need to do something like that in Vermont, or can we do something different? But we know that those fees are going up, unfortunately. And there is another fee that we're looking to implement starting on September 1st. It's not a new fee, it's actually an old fee that we haven't used since 2008. And that is a fee on recyclables, but recyclables only. So if you're a customer of our drop-off center and all you're bringing us are recycling, right now we don't charge you anything. And it gives the impression that recycling is free. When in reality, our trash customers who bring us a bag of trash and they're recycling, or a bag of trash and their food scraps, they're paying for those customers who are only bringing recycling. So they're subsidizing that customer because their fee for recycling and food scraps is built into the trash fee price. So that's all embedded in that price of the bag. So essentially the recycling only folks haven't had to pay their fair share. So it's not been transparent, it has not been fair and equal. So that will be implemented starting September 1. It affects about 7% of our customers. So there's very, very few people are recycling only customers right now. And what we anticipate happening is those folks who are recycling only because they have other regions for their trash, they'll probably consolidate their trips because it's $2 per vehicle. So it's not per bucket, it's per trip. So you can bring 1 bucket, 3, 5, it'll be $2. So most likely, like I said, they will consolidate, or they'll go once a month and they might bring a bag of trash, who knows? And then it's all covered. But that is again, it's a fee that's come back. We used to charge for recycling all along, and then stopped in 2008 for some reason prior to my time. Yes.
Can you comment on the drop-off center compost fees?
Those are staying the same. So it is, last year we implemented $1.50 per bucket fee for, again, food scraps only, if that's all you're bringing. If you want to drive out to our compost center out in Williston, there is no fee associated with dropping it off there. Essentially, that $1.50 is covering the transportation. So if you're doing the transportation yourself, then there's no fee to drop off the food scraps at Green Mountain Compost. Yes. And last but not least, we currently do not do any per capita assessments, so we don't send you a bill for our services. Other solid waste districts do. We don't. So that stays the same. There will be no per capita assessment in this budget. And the tax on trash, or the solid waste management fee, essentially a tax on trash disposed at Coventry landfill, is remaining the same. That is $27 a ton. And that is not going to increase this year either. So those are the big things going on. I would welcome any questions that you may have.
Abby?
Do you want to talk a little bit about Green Up Day and tires?
I certainly can.
Okay.
So, yeah, this has actually been increasing steadily for the past few years. So, what we've seen happen is each year, and actually Michelle could probably talk more about the actual numbers too, we've been seeing an increase in the amount of tires being brought through the Green Up Day program through the district. And it just doesn't seem like those are all tires coming from the side of the road or being pulled out of the woods. What we think are happening are either folks or public works departments or AOT and VTrans are saving their tires throughout the year and then literally bringing us truckloads because we waive the fees. So we're going to be looking at that this year. And that may also be another item that is ripe for an electronics e-waste style program where manufacturers need to help with the waste that they've put out there. So, it wasn't just seeing small vehicle tires. We were seeing big tractor tires. Those aren't on the side of the road. By and large. Well, bringing us 20, I don't know. I mean, it's.
They use them for.
Well, yeah, that is fine. They can use them for the tarping on the manure mountains, but that's not what we're seeing.
That's not Green Up Day.
No,
Right.
No.
That's taking
Disposal.
advantage of a free tire disposal day and calling it Green Up Day.
Right.
Yeah. So we want to, take a deeper dive, another look at that, and talk to our legislative delegation and see if there something that we can do on a statewide basis to bring it back to really what it should be. Because we're seeing many, many more tons of tires that seem to be reasonable for just being full. As
And
litter.
there's no revenue capture from the tires?
Normally there is, yeah. If you're just going to bring us any other time of the year, a tire, you do need to pay.
But from the recycling of them? There's
no. I think these go for tire derived fuel.
Yeah, they are too,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a fee we pay for
Yeah.
disposal. Our fee that we charge covers our disposal.
Right.
Right.
And in the context of Green Up Day, you couldn't ask for those people pulling up in their Mercedes with their 4 tires that they don't need anymore for donations.
That's not what's happening.
Oh, it is here, actually.
Oh, but
Yeah.
well, at our facilities for Green Up Day, we only accept municipal vehicles
Yeah.
because those vehicles have aggregated the Green Up Day stuff from their community. So it would be up to the town.
That's what I mean.
I
But we
apologize.
couldn't ask for you know, someone is using Green Up Day as the opportunity to turn in their tires, we couldn't ask for a voluntary donation for convenience.
I would just think the town could do whatever you care to do.
At- at the drop off.
Event,
Yeah.
because that's definitely happening.
Isn't there tire donation events other times of the year at Casella or at different places around the county?
Donation events or?
Well, yeah, you're thinking of the Governor Scott Construction Company and Casella partnered several years ago to start the Wheels for Warmth.
Yeah. But those are good tires? Or
Yeah, and so people can bring tires and they do some resell
Right.
tires as well. We discontinued our tire roundup days in 2013.
Really?
The board voted to do that, yeah, for the budget.
I thought there was something more recently. I mean, I remember just a couple of years ago.
Well, it might be the Wheels for Warmth.
Yeah,
that you're thinking
okay,
of.
yeah.
So that is something we're taking a look at for sure.
I wanted to ask how many towns have you spoken with so far?
You are lucky number 18.
And has everybody voted to accept the budget?
This year, we did have one town that did not approve the budget. That was Richmond.
Could you explain that process for voting on the budget? I know it's in the letter, but just to make sure everyone is aware of how the process works.
Sure. So our staff develops the budget with our finance committee, and our board of commissioners are, volunteers from the community who have been appointed by the select boards and city councils. We work with the finance committee over the course of approximately 3 months, and staff develops a budget. It goes to the finance committee. They ask questions. They ask us to revise. It goes to our executive board. The executive board reviews and then agrees to pass it on to the full board. The full board reviews, and then they approve the budget to be sent to our member towns. And then each member community receives a presentation like this, and then they can either vote to approve the budget, they can vote to disapprove the budget, or they can take no vote. A no vote is essentially a vote to approve the budget. There's a 45-day window from when my board agrees to have the budget go to the towns to when the towns have to take some kind of an action. And that deadline is June 8th.
How many select board meetings have you attended tonight?
Tonight I just had 2. Someone else did Huntington for me, but I was in Bolton earlier, so. But normally it's me.
Appreciate you coming down.
Oh, no, thank you.
Other questions? Is there?
Motion to approve the solid waste district fiscal year 20.
Second?
I'll second.
If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your
you
time.
taking the time also.
Thank you.
The 8:45 agenda item, the minutes from May 20th. Is there a motion to approve as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th, 2019 as may be amended.
Is there a second?
Second. streetlights.
Do we know what time we went into executive session? I'm assuming it was around 9 o'clock, or a little after.
Hey guys, I think we're pretty much through this and still have a quorum, so the hearing is pretty, like the audio is pretty bad, so I'm gonna ring off and see you next week.
Sounds great. Thank you for joining us.
Oh no, thank you guys. That was very useful tonight. Thanks a bunch.
Bye.
Bye.
So I don't know what time we went into executive session. I'm assuming it was around 9 o'clock-ish. So. I know it was 9:59 that I made a motion to adjourn and get out of executive session. And it was seconded by Fritz. He was raring to go.
That's true.
Birthday cake waiting at home.
Whoa. Happy birthday.
Yeah, that's all I got.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? 3-0. Selectboard updates, either of you have?
I think we kind of went over most of the updates during the meeting.
Yeah, I do have one that came up after the after the agenda was warned. It does involve potential litigation, and I don't think any action will be required. So, and I don't think there'll be any action after this. So VCAM can sign off if they feel like doing so, like last time. I'd make a motion to go into executive session to discuss possible litigation.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.